Many citizens and journalists have many questions about the constantly changing appearance of our President Putin. If you come up with the idea of comparing Putin's appearance and voice at the beginning of his rule and now, you will be amazed at the obvious difference.
Дорогие друзья,
Dear friends,
сегодня в новогоднюю ночь
today on New Year's Eve,
мы с вами на пороге
we are together on the threshold of a new,
с родными и
just like
друзьями
you, with family and friends,
2014 года.
of 2014.
Собирался выслушать
I was
слова
going to listen to the
приветствия
words of greeting
президента
from the
России.
President of Russia.
Французского сопротивления. Никогда не забудем тех, но огромное количество наших граждан. Президент Оланд был настолько любезен, что пригласил меня как представителя России на эти торжественные мероприятия, что это всегда помогает при принятии каких-то прагматических, я бы сказал, даже технократических решений в сфере экономики. Трагические, печальные и в то же время торжественные. Я с удовольствием принимаю это приглашение и благодарен президенту.
Moreover, if you carefully examine the photos and videos of the president for the entire period of his political activity, you can count not one, but up to 6 doubles. Please notice how Putin's forehead wrinkles are different in photographs from different years. One person's forehead wrinkle patterns does not change with time. And here we see a straight tick, then waves. Such differences cannot be explained by age-related changes, even if we assume that the original had plastic surgery to maintain a youthful appearance. Wrinkles around the eyes have different shapes, either a deep triangle to the middle of the cheek or an almost flat arc. Diagonal wrinkles and dashes are also visible or absent. Different mannerisms in the same hand gesture. Different earlobes. A letter from one of Putin's colleagues appeared on the internet. He writes that, at the beginning of his presidency, he recognized friends. They even went skiing in Austria during one of his visits. Since 2006, Putin has stopped recognizing him. A colleague suggested that the reason could be Putin's death from spinal cancer and his subsequent replacement with a double. In 2005, Russian doctors discovered Putin had spinal cancer, and he was sent to Germany for examination and treatment. German doctors confirmed the diagnosis. According to one of them, Putin had several months to live. The treatment was refused. Putin was taken to Russia. How surprised this doctor was when, about 6 months later, he saw him on TV, cheerful and healthy. The colleague also notes that Putin's double speaks German like a person who has learned it well. Vladimir, on the other hand, spoke German with an East German accent. Putin, a professional intelligence officer, has lived in Germany for 5 years. According to published biographical information, at the beginning of his presidential term, he speaks excellent German and uses complex constructions.
Und manchmal aufrichtig, ganz ehrlich gesagt von eigener Ungewohnheit, schlägt unter dem allen das starke, lebendige Herz Russlands.
2007, Putin makes serious mistakes in speech. Mistakes are cut out on German channels, not on Russian ones.
Sie haben gemacht, geben Sie mir Zeit, das zu beantworten. Sie haben gemacht, was Sie gemacht wollten. Jetzt lassen Sie uns in Ruhe, geben Sie mir Zeit, das zu beantworten.
The year is 2012. Putin speaks with sentences from a 5th grade secondary school program, and the pronunciation leaves much to be desired. April 2013, Putin cannot do without an interpreter.
Ask Madam Federal Chancellor to support Yekaterinburg as the
Lebendige Herz Russlands.
2013, an interview with a German television company. The presenter's speech is clearly being translated to him. Please note that Putin responds only after he hears the translation.
Warum handeln Ihre Behörden so?
Вы пугаете немецкое общество.
Ich glaube, Sie schüchtern die deutsche Öffentlichkeit ein.
Ничего подобного не происходит.
Es passiert doch gar nichts Ähnliches und man muss die Menschen nicht einschüchtern, man muss objektiv die Entwicklungen beleuchten. Und was ist denn die objektive Beleuchtung? Ende vergangen.
As soon as the presenter starts talking, Putin puts on his headphones again.
Nach unserem Verständnis funktioniert
In February 2014, the media showed a story about a meeting between Putin and Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. The Prime Minister tries to pet Putin's dog, and the Russian president warned that it was biting. Dog handlers, the canologists, noticed the strange behavior of the dog. According to them, dogs don't behave like that in the presence of their owner. The conclusion is either the wrong dog or the wrong Putin, who selects and trains the doubles. Obviously, this is the hand style of the secret intelligence services. The logical conclusion is that political decisions in our country are being made by the same Western masters of the Yeltsin coup and, most likely, the current Russian authorities. Now the authorities are engaged in identifying the identity of every citizen, but it is important for every citizen to think about identifying the identity of the president. This issue has always been important both in history and in politics. For example, at the birth of the heir to the English throne, the Minister of the Interior was always present so that the heir would not be replaced. It is only in recent years that everything has been done to prevent the identification of the rulers. This is how Kate Middleton, the wife of British Prince William, gave birth for the first time in history without the presence of the minister. In Russia, the Volya Party was the only one who turned the issue of Putin's doubles from the category of gossip into an official inquiry. The response from the Prosecutor General's office was shocking. Changing the president's appearance does not violate your civil rights. We don't know anything about Putin's family, also allegedly for security reasons, but in no other country in the world do presidents hide their children or their wives. On the contrary, they are always in plain sight, and it is important for voters what kind of family man their president is. But if Putin has been replaced, then it becomes clear why we don't see his family. Apparently, the children and the wife, who has already become annex, simply do not want to live with a stranger, a double of their father and husband. In addition, they may unwittingly reveal this secret, and it is better to keep them away.
Well, who's against them? Some kind of an asshole, Solovey. Or Anatoly Shary, a seemingly completely independent blogger, did not lag behind. Idiotic lies about Putin's death can be made by the Russian special services in order to demonstrate the stupidity of the press, sucking up these idiotic lies for the 100th time. Anatoly did not understand that if we talk about the stupidity of the press, then in this case Shary himself topped the list of this stupid press. But why all this information noise about such an insignificant internet fool? And you see, 2 days before the Solovey, on October 24th, allegedly out of the blue Peskov crowed about Putin's doubles. Rumors that Putin had heart problems over the weekend are groundless. He's fine. This is another rumor. The claim that the president has doubles belongs to the category of absurd canards. He doesn't have any doubles. It doesn't cause anything but a smile. End of quote. As you can see, at first the Kremlin began to refute some rumors about doubles, and only then, 2 days later, Solovey came out so that everyone would think that he had spread these rumors. But if it wasn't Solovey, then who actually started the conversation about Putin's doubles? In fact, on October 20th, the Japanese TV company TBS News compared 3 modern Putins using artificial intelligence and came to the conclusion that Putin has 2 doubles. The photo of the real Putin was not compared with modern artists by the Japanese so as not to compromise the Japanese authorities. And photos were taken of only 3 of just those artists in the role of Putin. With that, the Japanese mistook the one who hosted the parade on the podium on May 9th for the real Putin, as if any artist couldn't stand on the podium and read a speech. I repeat, the Japanese did not dare to compare the photos of these 3 artists with the photos of the real Putin. Here is a short excerpt from this broadcast.
First, let's compare Putin's voice when he visited a helicopter factory in eastern Siberia in March this year. What is the difference between these 2 fragments? Voice specialist Mitsutoshi Muraoka. Here you can see that the first letter S is strongly highlighted. The PA sound reaches a value of 9 kHz, and the C sound reaches a value of 5.4 kHz. Let's compare it with this. Here, the letter S in the word spasibo sounds very weak. In addition to the difference in pronunciation of the S sound, there is also a difference in pronunciation of the sounds of pi and C. Let's hear it again. It is necessary to take into account the difference in recording conditions, as well as in pronunciation as such. But still, such differences are extremely rare. At the moment, we can say that the probability that these voices belong to different people is very high. We consider the real Putin to be the one depicted in the top photo taken on May 9th at the Victory Day parade. We compare the other 2 images using artificial intelligence. The similarity to the person who visited the Crimean Bridge is 53%, which is a low indicator. In most cases, facial recognition experts would say that there is no match. Because of this, it is assumed that it may be a double. The other photo has 40% similarity, which is even lower, which means it's probably another double. Moreover, the similarity between the 2 photos is 18%, which indicates that they are 2 different people. Expert analyses of artificial intelligence on face recognition clearly show a high probability of having at least 2 doubles. The gait of Putin, who appeared at the naval parade, had 86% coincidence. This, of course, looks enough, but for artificial intelligence, these numbers indicate the presence of another person. Here are the results of an analysis of Putin's visit to Mariupol. The percentage of matches dropped to 75%, which adds to the likelihood of a double. The conclusion was made based on the study of body position during walking.
All over the world, computer programs identify citizens by their faces, even when making monetary transactions. That is, they would not even have been given Putin's pension in the faces of these 3 artists. And our domestic morons of the opposition are screaming in unison, "Putin, Putin." There are no censored words. Meaning this Solovey, posing as a moron, covered up all the talkers, including the opposition, from having to discuss the conclusions of Japanese artificial intelligence. Solovey, let's say, threw himself at the embrasure with his chest of the information so necessary for the people of Russia and Ukraine. That's why he's needed. This.
Then I found an article by Die Welt, which was thoroughly wiped up on the internet. Lyudmila Putina does not recognize her husband. She says, "I don't recognize Putin. Where did Putin go?"